Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some nuclear revenge. Our first story today comes to us from Landon D&D. Beat me up, my mother will burn your house down. Let's jump right in. So this story might be a bit long. Alright, so I am Wiccan, aka not Christian, and I'm pretty open about it. Now, this got me in trouble when I was younger, specifically in the 4th grade. I was bullied heavily in school for this, since I lived in a predominantly Christian area in the South. Note, my town is literally only 900 people. This means everyone knows everyone. The bullying started typical and manageable, being called names and having my stuff knocked out of my hands. The only thing that really got under my skin was when they'd call me a Satanist or a devil worshipper, but even then I'd just brush it off since I'm neither of those things, and I'd even correct them on what Satanism was. This might have made it worse for a bit, but I had fun doing it. Well, one day I guess I must have done something these kids really didn't like, because they managed to talk their older siblings into following me home to beat me up. Some of their siblings were seniors or even graduates. 3 of them were legally adults. This is especially important. As a kid, I have no sense of danger and just took them following me as them going the same way. But I was still moving pretty fast because we just got a Wii and I wanted to play Mario. Well, I managed to get to my yard, but not much further than that when my backpack got grabbed and was pushed to the ground. These teens were now beating me, and they weren't pulling any punches either. Well, I guess my mom heard the noise and came outside. They ran off after that. My mom picked me up and had to take me to the emergency room. I had 2 fractures in my nose and a broken arm. This meant I couldn't play the Wii until it healed, and the police were called while I was there. Remember how I said I reached my yard? Well, we had cameras that caught most of the assault and caught almost all of the teens' faces. The ones who were 16 and under mostly got a slap on the wrist, and that was that. There were about 7 of them, I think. Not all were hitting me, some were recording. But the ones who were 18 got arrested and faced some heavy prison time. Now, there was this 17-year-old who I will call Trashy Teen from here on, who managed to walk out of this after a few days in the county jail. My mom was not happy with this at all, since his birthday was about 2 weeks away and he should have been charged as an adult. Now, like I said before, this is a small town where everyone knows everyone else, and my mom knew exactly where Trashy Teen lived and knew his parents. This is the point where my mom shared the majority of this story. I'd like to point out that his parents weren't nice people at all, and my mom definitely had more than one reason to despise these people, such as when they stole our Pomeranian from our yard, tied him to a streetlight, and hit him with a stick. The fact that their son broke my bones set her off the edge with this family, and I think the final nail in the coffin for them was actually bragging about how their son got away with beating up that heathen boy at the local stores and on social media. It didn't take too long for my mom to work out a plan in her mind, because later that week she told me that she'd get them out of town no matter what. My mom is not a killer though, and while she later did admit she was tempted to enact the plan much sooner, she chose not to make things worse if she gets caught. She waited for 2 months, that is, until summer break hit. Trashy family was not one to be quiet about big plans, since they loved to brag about having more money than most in the town, and would always announce when they would be going on vacation, where they'd be going, and for how long they'd be going for. This was it, Mom's golden opportunity. She made sure everything was set, checked around Trashy family's neighbors' houses for any cameras, made sure that she had a place she wouldn't be seen, and on the last day of Trashy family's vacation, as I said, they'd even announce how long they'd been gone, she went down at night and set their house on fire. This small town didn't have its own fire station, the nearest one was 45 minutes away. By the time a fire truck got there, the damage had been done. Most of their house was completely destroyed. Just like clockwork, that next morning, they arrived to see the destruction. You could hear the screaming 3 blocks away. My mom just sat in her chair, drinking coffee, and watching the Golden Girls. The reason I chose to write this now is because my mother passed away in 2017. This was when she chose to tell me the whole story. I didn't want anyone who knew her to read this immediately after her passing, so I waited a few years before sharing. Wow, this one is absolutely brutal, and I can see why Mom sat on that story until she was on her deathbed. Hell hath no fury like a mom protecting her kids. At least she waited until she knew the family was out of the house. Now, OP continued on this series with 2 more posts, and we're gonna go into the second one right now. Do me a quick favor and take a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're actually not subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. So this next story comes to us from the same OP, Landon DND, and it's titled, "Don't Ever Be a Pedo in the Country." Let's jump right in. So a few people on my last post wanted to hear this story. I might end up having to make an entire series based on what I call country justice, since they do tend to be entertaining. This story I was only directly involved a little, but since I live in a small town, I have heard the entire story from the people who were involved. It was late August. I was newly a senior in high school and working at a gas station known for its pizza. Though this doesn't seem like it matters, it definitely does. In my town, we only had one registered sex offender, and everyone knew who it was. He'd often come to my gas station to hit on our female workers and make everyone generally uncomfortable. I'm going to call him Herbert. Now, this story mostly takes place with my good neighbors, but if you know country living, messing with a good friend is the same as messing with my family, and messing with a good friend's children is messing with the entire town. Characters: Herbert the pervert, Doug, good neighbor and family friend, Katie, daughter 1, Sadie, daughter 2, Josh, my younger brother, Mom, my biological mom. My adoptive mother was the one from the previous story. My bio mom was on drugs at the time I was born. She had been clean for 13 years as of the time of this story and regained guardianship over me after my adoptive mother passed in 2017. Adoptive mom is biologically my grandmother, and my bio mom has always stayed a part of my life. And Dusty, my stepdad. The actual story, Doug's story. It was a nice day out. Katie and Sadie were playing in a kiddie pool. Doug was sitting on his back deck and drinking a beer with Dusty. Dusty was talking about having a barbecue at our house and inviting the block to join. This is when they noticed something a bit odd coming from the bushes used as a property divider. Doug gets up to check it out, thinking it might be a dog that got out of a fence or something and doesn't want it to get hurt. Instead, he is greeted by an old man holding a camera, taking pictures of his daughters, where my family starts getting involved. Herbert, sensing he's been caught, takes a can of gasoline he has on his property and dumps it on Doug, trying and failing to light it. Dusty easily notices and rushes to Doug's aid. Yes, this is exactly how he described this to me, and I find it too funny to change it to make it seem less heroic. Herbert manages to run away while they are distracted by Doug's gas problem. The start. Now, no one liked Herbert, but he's never actually done anything illegal until now. So we act like rational people and call the police. Sadly, we don't have enough evidence to do anything this time, so it fell on my family and Doug's family as head of the neighborhood watch to bring this man to justice. A few phone calls later, and everyone in town knows what Herbert has done, including me at this point, and now I can start the story from my point of view. My point of view. A few days go by, and at my workplace, we're instructed to refuse gas sales to Herbert. I found out later this was Dusty's idea to keep him in town under the guise of preventing him from doing this again. I would like to add that the police were fine with this until the investigation was over. So this could be counted as part of the full revenge plus some petty revenge. As the plans start forming with the small army of people we have assembled, about 20 or so, they finally find a plan that won't be completely sadistic. The revenge. Now, this is my favorite part, and I get to inform all of you that my family are all farmers, which means we have access to a large field that is away from all main roads and out of sight of the entire town. Some of you might already guess what's about to happen. Well, my family announces that we are having a cookout, so naturally everyone in town hears about this, including the police. Now, around 10 of the 20-ish people actually go to a cookout hosted by my mom. This is where she tells the story everyone needs to start telling. I was there, so here's the truth. Everyone who is part of the group is currently at this cookout. That is all. So the other half of the group went to find Herbert. They were gone for 3 hours. Herbert was found at night, bloody and beaten. Sorry, they refused to tell me more details on what was actually done. All I know is that no bones were broken. He gets to the hospital with the help of an anonymous tip to the police. We aren't evil. He goes home the next day. But did Herbert learn his lesson? Nope. This time I get to see what he tries to do. He tries to grab my little brother. I grab my brother and pull him away before anything happens, but I'm pissed. His dad is pissed, and my mom is pissed. Those of you who read the last story know how my adoptive mom reacts to this kind of stuff, and my bio mom was raised by her. But my mom is not a killer. However, my stepfather is another story. He has been to prison, and he's not scared of it, and this pedo just tried to grab his son. Later that night, he calls my mom. He says we need to throw a cookout right now, and says that Herbert has been hit by a truck. My mom asks one question: "Did you do this?" He says no. "Did you do this, Dusty? I need to know so I can come up with something if you did." He says no. We hold another cookout and invite the same people as last time. To this day, Dusty will not tell me who is the one who hit him. He says that he'll take it to his grave. Oh, and I guess I should say Herbert didn't die due to another anonymous phone call. Like I said, we aren't killers, but sometimes we get really close. This isn't in too much detail, but everyone in this story is still alive, which means I can always ask them for more details if needed. Let me know if you want to hear what we did to my biological father after he broke into our house in part 3 of the Country Justice series. Honestly, I have no idea how no one got arrested here, but next year, Herbert did actually get arrested for CP. We now have 0 sex offenders in our town. Okay, so I don't know what part of the country OP lives in, but if the cops let a guy walk for attempted murder with witnesses, then I don't think when Herb leaves town without a trace, they would dig into it too much, or even at all. I think Herb's actually lucky that he was able to walk, or at least hobble, away from this one. Hang on to your seats, we've also got one more from the same OP. This next story, also from Landon D&D, is titled "Dad Breaks Into Our House, We Make His Life Hell." Let's jump right in. I'd like to start off by saying I'm not sure if this fits here. Compared to the last few stories, this is pretty tame. Part 3 of the Country Justice series. My dad is not a good person by any means of the word, and this is going to involve some serious trauma. Characters: Dad, worst father of all time. Mom, biological. Ryan, my twin brother. Cayenne, my older sister. Dusty, my stepfather. The before. Way back when Cayenne was born, Dad had already fallen off the wagon. The first thing he ever did was physically force Mom into doing drugs to make sure she stayed with him. Following her birth, things only got worse. While Mom would do what she could, Dad was not happy about having a kid. He'd lock Cayenne in her room for days at a time, because obviously you can't make meth while hearing how hungry your child is. 2 years later, Mom was pregnant with Ryan and me. She immediately tried quitting the drugs and had some success, but having meth in our system, we were at serious risk. Ryan and I were born with huge complications, premature, barely breathing, and weakened immune systems. After that came the worst few months for Mom to endure. While having one kid made Dad angry, having 3 made him fly completely off the handle. It was at this time Mom made the hard decision to call DCFS on herself. She knew we weren't safe and wanted a way for us to escape this situation. Mom willfully signed away her rights to us, and Dad, of course, wanted to fight. Both were arrested for child abuse and endangerment. Don't cook meth with kids in the house, as well as the drugs. It took 4 years and hundreds of letters for Mom to get into rehab. As this was happening, my siblings and I lived with our grandmother, who we grew up calling Mom. My grandmother had no intention on fully adopting us, but she was left with little choice after a few years. It was either adopt us or we would be taken into DCFS care. Life was better for us mostly. There's a reason I never mentioned my adoptive father, and we were safe. After a few years in rehab, Mom was able to get back in touch with us. She was welcomed, and I ended up crying because I found out my adoptive mom wasn't my real mom. We did get to leave kindergarten early the day she came home though. We grew as a family and it was good. After a few years of this, my adoptive father left the picture. Now, everything is actually great. My grandmother passed away in 2017. This was hard for everybody, but especially for Mom. She was devastated, losing the one person who believed she could become clean, a good person, and a great mother. Now, Dad gets out of prison and goes back every few years, and he usually tries to get in touch when he does. This year was different. We didn't have our grandma to make sure everything would stay safe, and Mom didn't think she could handle seeing him. The mistake. The day comes to bury my grandmother. It was a particularly warm November day. We are all having a hard time and don't deal with grief too well. I stayed with Mom the entire time, while Ryan went to our other grandparents to help out. Cayenne stayed in her room the whole time. We occasionally checked in on her. Night falls and we are looking through old pictures of Grandma, and we're finally able to stop crying. That is, until we hear some heavy banging on our door, followed by it swinging open, and in walks Dad. He goes straight to Cayenne's room and Mom is simply frozen. This is the first time I've ever seen her this way. He eventually leaves on his own after some screaming and making Cayenne cry. He ended up taking her money and then hitting her. Dusty has called the police already. We have a police scanner. Dusty has been outside the whole time, and as soon as Dad left, he went to confront him. Mom had to snap herself out of that frozen state and called Dusty inside. She didn't know if Dad was armed or anything and didn't want to take any chances. Dad goes across the street and pulls stuff out of his pockets as the cops pull up. He was dumping his bath salts right in front of the cops. He ended up arrested and we get a restraining order. This is not the last we see of him though. Over the next few years, we had to plan to make sure he regrets ever threatening our family again. The plan we managed to come up with was initially supposed to be petty and mildly inconvenient, but it ended up being so much more. We were just going to call the police every week or so on him if he had something he wasn't supposed to have back to jail. This didn't work out as planned, and the turnout was much more severe. Dad gets out of prison and lives with his mom. Now, the problem with this is that we regularly go visit our grandparents, which means he'd either have to leave or we couldn't go. I'm going to call my other grandma Nana to keep things a bit more coherent. Nana would always make him leave if we came over, no matter what temperature, time, or weather conditions. This would also apply to whenever we stay the night. We visited Nana so much after knowing what she'd do to see us. This was just our way of saying screw you to our dad. The thing about this meant he was essentially homeless, didn't have a car, and could barely find a job. When a job did hire him, he'd post in or Nana would tell us. We'd give them a call and have them do a drug test. He always failed the drug test. So now he's essentially homeless, having the police called on him and on drugs. He gets tired of this pretty quickly and goes back to Nana's when we are there. A clear violation of the restraining order, so he gets fined. This isn't a meager amount of money either. This ruined his savings. So now he's also broke and got kicked out of Nana's. Now he starts to realize he's pretty screwed. We called the police for a suspicious man sleeping on the sidewalk, and he had drugs on him. Back to jail. At least he has a bed. After a few times of this, he is finally broken, devoid of all hope. He manages to get Nana to let him stay there again, so now we get more updates. This has been going on for months now, and we weren't going to stop. Job gone. Home gone. Money gone. Drugs gone. Hope gone. He actually started to be clean for a bit. Hard to get drugs if you can't buy them, and when you do, they immediately get confiscated. That is, until he finds a new woman. He gets back on the drugs thanks to her money. So what do? Get her arrested while he's gone. We are being extra careful not to get him arrested anymore, since he'd end up in federal prison this time after so many times getting caught with drugs. Our state sends them to federal. Now we've taken away his girlfriend too. The effect, all of this has worn him down. He's gone. Anytime he'd regain even a tiny bit of hope, we'd snuff it out. He eventually tries to take his own life with a pew-pew that he's not supposed to have. And he fails. So now we get to watch him suffer in the hospital while knowing he gets taken to prison as soon as he heals. We had to make things worse for him. We couldn't let the times we didn't call the police go unnoticed after all. We hide some drugs and ingredients in his dresser, easily noticeable when the police come to search. He now has quite a while in federal prison. Wow, remind me not to get on the bad side of OP or OP's family? OP said at the beginning of this last story that it's pretty tame, but I mean, they broke laws and framed a person for crimes they didn't commit after pressuring them until they tried to take their own life. I don't think that's tame at all. It's not petty or pro, it definitely fits in Nuclear Revenge. Check out OP, linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.